What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Nvidia, ticker symbol NVDA, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Thursday, February 15th. Well, Nvidia stock here today finishing up over 17 points a share, almost 2.5%, 2.46%, essentially flat after hours, down 1 point, which for Nvidia is no big deal. And since after hours is always such low volume, unless there's an earnings catalyst or something of the like, we absolutely have to take that with a grain of salt anyway, okay? Big second, like 2/3 of the day pump, though, in Nvidia, after that late morning dump off that we did see in the name. Let's take a closer look at the intraday here. For any potential intraday opportunity, help us maybe, generate some revenue around maybe a core position. If you guys get any value out of these videos every single day, NVIDIA gets 5 videos a week in the prep for the next trading day. Please subscribe to the channel. Our goal is 1,000 the next 10 days or so, and I think we can hit that with your help. So thank you. Let's take a look here now on the 1-minute chart. Really, if I'm looking here on NVIDIA, I'm not seeing in this mid part of the day, after we saw this kind of dump off mid-morning or late morning more so, I'm not really seeing a lot of intraday edge in this portion. We zoom in over here. Honestly, kind of a sloppy rejection setup, a little too much give. I call those, when I'm talking to my trading group, I kind of refer to these as like mushy rejections. There's just a little too much leeway. It's tough to develop edge because in order to manage your risk properly, you have to be very diligent in taking your stops. But when you're dealing with a mushy rejection setup like that, it's really tough to time things out and still retain edge over a really large sample size. So I did have to hold off there as well. But what I did want to show you guys, if you go later in the day, you start getting this trend here. And I mean, realistically, I'm sure in this last hour of the trading day, really 45 minutes, I would bet that we had quite a few traders taking these little pull-ins on the 9 EMA. But listen, I just did a long, half-hour long training on the Roensch Capital channel of what I call the breathe and go setup, which is similar to this. However, the only problem on NVIDIA here today, again, I'm sure we saw a lot of traders successfully trading that, is that NVIDIA wasn't necessarily an in-play stock today. What I mean by that is every day there's going to be 5 to 15 stocks that are obviously in play for intraday opportunity. What that means is we're looking for a fresh news catalyst, elevated relative volume, usually 2 to 3x the 30-day average, or sometimes it can even be elevated volume around a huge, highly respected by most people technical level that most traders would agree on. NVIDIA was unfortunately not really, any of those things today, but I mean, listen, please don't take that out of context. I'm talking 5 to 10, maybe 15 stocks on any given day. 99% of stocks are not going to be that on any given day. That's not a dig on NVIDIA. NVIDIA actually, interestingly, is quote unquote in play for intraday revenue generating opportunity. More than the average ticker, especially as of late. So let's move on now. I think we've talked enough about that. Let's look at the 5-minute. I really want to get contextual with volume here, because we have 2 moves in particular that I really want to look at. It's this kind of intraday late morning dump off and then this pump into the close. Now, if we look at volume, okay, we saw slightly elevated volume on that dump off. Bears are going to look at that and actually think, wow, that looks really great. Unfortunately for the bears, I suppose, I think that kind of neutrals out once you get this elevated volume into the close on that kind of pull away pump. Okay, that kind of wiped away that dump off to begin with. So I'm going to call the volume bias here on the 5-minute kind of neutral today. So let's move on. Here's the 30-minute. Let's now, we're going to get really contextual with day-to-day psychological self-fulfilling prophecy levels to watch now here starting on the 30-minute. We have to look at all the relevant time frames. But let's start on the 30-minute. Here, that 50 period is reasonably close. I mean, it's about 1.15% to the downside away. So here's what I'm looking for tomorrow from a bullish perspective. If I'm a bull here on Nvidia tomorrow, I'm going to want to see First of all, ideally, you'd really want to see just a pull away up towards 750 and then let the 50 period come to you. But if we do see a downside test, obviously you're going to want to see that hold as support. Bears, really simple here on the 30-minute chart. Look to break downside back beneath that 50 period. Ideally, it's a little bit more of a move away, but ideally look down toward that 200 period, about 3.4% to the downside. Okay, 4 hour. Here we go. We have approximately a 6.1% downside move to get down to that 50 period here on the 4 hour chart. So, listen, is that possible in one day from Nvidia? Of course, we've seen it. But if you're a bull, you don't necessarily want to have to see that retest, especially considering it's below $700 a share. So what's interesting is when we talked about this yesterday, this thing moved higher, which is exactly what we said, the bulls are going to want to see. It moved almost 2% higher in one day. On the 4 hour chart, that's relatively impressive, almost as much as we saw the stock move here today. So if you're a bull here looking at the 50 period on the 4 hour chart, you're just going to want to see that continue upside. Ideally, my priority, get that 50 period up above $700 a share, help to strengthen that level a little bit just in case, right? Now, if you're a bear, really, really simple. Try to break downside as, make your way back down toward ideally a test and then eventually a break down through that 50 period moving average here on the 4 hour chart. All right. Now, the most important chart of all is going to be the daily here. We have earnings coming up in a week on Nvidia, February 21st here after the market closes. But listen here on the daily, really no moving averages in sight. They're down around 560, that 50 day. The 200 days down around 450. Okay. So here's what I'm looking at. We're looking at big psychological levels. If I'm a bull tomorrow, here's my goal. Hit an all-time high, get above 750 and hold it. That's really what I'm looking for if I'm a bull. But listen, if I'm a bull on Nvidia heading into earnings, I'm happy with just a hold of $700 a share, really. But ideally a break and hold of 750 tomorrow would be a beautiful thing if you are a bull on Nvidia. Now, you bears on Nvidia, two things. If we see a test more so of 750 or the all-time high, reject hard. Ideally making our way down toward 700 because you bears, inevitably, what's your goal? Right, get below $700 a share. That's your goal. Right, discourage the bulls, encourage the bears. That's your goal if you're a bear here on Nvidia. Let's take a look now at the bias in the chain, as we do each and every day. We have 1.46 million total contracts traded here today. Pretty heavy overall call bias here. 977,000 calls, 483,000 puts. Okay, the short-term speculators, the 0 to 20 delta, 277,000 calls, 219,000 puts. So we're also seeing call bias out of the short-term speculators. And as we get deeper into the money there too, look at that 61 to 80 delta, 81 to 100 delta. Still heavy call bias. So we're seeing call bias on the overall, on the short term, on the midterm, and on the longer term. On every front here today on Nvidia, we're seeing bias to the call side. Listen, again, as always around here, manage your risk. The options traders, they can be wrong, okay? But it's a big sample size. That's what they're telling us here today. Listen, if you got value out of that video, please just quick leave a like on the video before you head out. Helps out tremendously. You have no idea. And I'll see you in the next one.